I stood in my dimly lit living room, the only sound being the ticking of the grandfather clock my late wife had gifted me. It had been 8 long years since my son, Jack, last spoke to me. 8 years since he walked out of my life without looking back. The pain still lingered, but I had learned to live with it. After all, I had my savings to keep me company. $250,000 that I had stashed away in a secret account, hoping that one day Jack would come back and I could give it to him as a gift. But little did I know, Jack had been keeping tabs on me, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And when he finally did, I was caught off guard. "Dad, I need to talk to you about something," he said, his voice firm but laced with a hint of desperation. I turned to face him, my heart racing with anticipation. What did he want? And why now, after all these years? "What is it, Jack?" I asked, trying to keep my cool. "I know you've been hiding money from me," he said, his eyes blazing with a mix of anger and accusation. "I know you've got $250,000 stashed away somewhere. And I want it." I was taken aback. How did he know? And what made him think he deserved it? "Jack, I started to explain, but he cut me off. "Don't lie to me, Dad. I've been doing some digging, and I know all about your secret account. You owe me that money. And I'll do whatever it takes to get it." I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized the extent of Jack's desperation. What was driving him to be so ruthless? And what would happen if he got his hands on that money? I knew I had to tread carefully, but I also knew I couldn't back down. The question was, how far would Jack go to get what he wanted? And what would be the consequences of his actions? I stood my ground, trying to reason with Jack. "Son, you don't understand. That money is for your future, not for you to squander on whatever reckless scheme you've got cooking in that head of yours." But Jack just laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. "My future? You mean the future you've been controlling for me all these years?" "No, Dad, I'm taking back control. And I'm starting with that money." I felt a surge of anger at his words, but I bit back my temper. I knew that escalating the situation would only play into Jack's hands. Instead, I tried to appeal to whatever shred of decency was left in him. "Jack, think about what you're doing. You're not just hurting me, you're hurting yourself. You're throwing away your chance at a better life, a chance to make something of yourself." But Jack just sneered. "You don't know anything about me, Dad. You never have. And as for that money, I'll do whatever it takes to get it. You can't stop me." I realized then that I was dealing with a stranger, not my son. The boy I had raised, the boy I had loved and cared for, was gone. In his place was a cold, calculating individual who would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized the true extent of Jack's desperation. What had driven him to this point? What had made him so ruthless? I decided to probe deeper, to try and understand what was driving Jack's behavior. "What's going on, Jack? What's behind all this? You're not just doing this for the money, are you?" For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of uncertainty in Jack's eyes. But then his mask slipped back into place, and he was once again the cold, calculating stranger I had come to realize he was. "I'm doing it because I need the money, Dad. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get it. You can't stop me." I knew then that I had to take drastic action. I couldn't just sit back and let Jack destroy himself, no matter how much he had hurt me. I decided to take a stand, to fight for my son, even if he didn't want me to. "Jack, I'm warning you. If you continue down this path, you'll lose everything. You'll lose your future, your reputation, your relationships. Is that really what you want?" But Jack just laughed again, a cold, mirthless sound. "You don't know anything about me, Dad. And you certainly don't know what I want. But I'll tell you one thing, I want that money. And I'll get it, no matter what it takes." I felt a surge of fear at his words, fear for what he might do next. I knew that I had to take action, to stop Jack before he could do any more damage. But what could I do? I was just one man, against a ruthless and determined adversary. I decided to seek help, to find someone who could stop Jack before he could carry out his plans. But who could I turn to? The police? A lawyer? Or someone else entirely? As I stood there, trying to decide what to do next, I heard a noise behind me. I turned to see a figure standing in the doorway, a figure I hadn't seen in years. It was my old friend, Mike. A man I had trusted with my life, a man who had always had my back. But what was he doing here, now? "Mike," I said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" Mike's eyes locked onto Jack, and I could see the shock and concern written all over his face. "Bob, what's going on?" Mike asked, his voice low and urgent. "I saw Jack lurking around your house, and I knew something was wrong." "What's happening?" I hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. But then I decided to trust Mike, to tell him the truth. "It's Jack," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "He's after my money. He's willing to do whatever it takes to get it." Mike's face hardened, and I could see the determination in his eyes. "Don't worry, Bob," Mike said. "I'll take care of this. I'll make sure Jack doesn't get his hands on your money." But as Mike stepped forward, ready to confront Jack, I realized that things were about to get a lot more complicated. A lot more complicated, and a lot more dangerous. As Mike stepped forward, Jack's eyes narrowed, and he took a step back, his hands clenched into fists. "And who's going to stop me, huh?" Jack sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "You? You're just a washed-up old cop, Mike. You can't even stop a speeding ticket, let alone me." Mike's face darkened, and he took another step forward, his eyes blazing with anger. "That's enough, Jack," Mike growled. "You're not going to disrespect me or your father like that. You're going to listen to us, and you're going to listen now." But Jack just laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. "Or what? You'll arrest me? Ha! I've got a lawyer on speed dial, Mike. I'll be out of jail in an hour, and I'll be back here, ready to take what's mine." Mike's eyes locked onto Jack's, and I could see the tension between them building. It was like a powder keg, waiting to be ignited. And then, in a flash of insight, I realized what was driving Jack's behavior. It wasn't just the money, it was the principle of the thing. Jack was determined to prove a point, to show me and Mike that he was in control, that he was the one calling the shots. And he was willing to do whatever it took to make that point, no matter who got hurt. "Jack, stop this," I said, trying to reason with him. "You're not going to prove anything by being a bully. You're just going to end up hurting yourself, and the people around you." But Jack just shook his head, his eyes glinting with a cold, hard light. "You don't get it, Dad," Jack said, his voice dripping with contempt. "I'm not just doing this for the money. I'm doing it because I'm tired of being pushed around. I'm tired of being treated like a child. I'm tired of being controlled." And with that, Jack turned and walked out of the room, leaving Mike and me staring after him in shock. "What just happened?" Mike asked, his voice low and urgent. "I don't know," I replied, feeling a sense of dread wash over me. "But I think we just saw the tip of the iceberg. I think Jack's been planning this for a long time, and I think he's just getting started." Mike's eyes locked onto mine, and I could see the concern written all over his face. "We need to do something, Bob," Mike said. "We need to stop Jack before he can do any more damage." But as we stood there, trying to decide what to do next, I realized that we were running out of time. Jack was already one step ahead of us, and he was just getting started. We needed to come up with a plan, and fast, or risk losing everything. I thought back to all the times Jack had been in trouble, all the times he had manipulated and lied to get what he wanted. And then, in a flash of insight, I realized what we needed to do. We needed to use Jack's own tactics against him. We needed to outsmart him, outmaneuver him, and outplay him at his own game. But how? I looked at Mike, and saw the determination written all over his face. "We can do this, Bob," Mike said. "We can stop Jack and take back control." And with that, we set out on a mission to outsmart Jack, to take back what was rightfully mine, and to bring Jack to justice. But as we navigated the complex web of Jack's deceit, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were in over our heads. Jack was a master manipulator, and he would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. And as we delved deeper into the heart of the matter, I realized that the stakes were higher than I had ever imagined. We were playing with fire, and we were running out of time. As we delved deeper into the heart of the matter, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were in over our heads. Jack was a master manipulator, and he would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. We needed to be careful, to stay one step ahead of him at all times. But as we navigated the complex web of Jack's deceit, I realized that it wasn't just Jack we needed to worry about. There were other players involved, other people who were helping Jack to achieve his goals. And I had a feeling that these people were just as ruthless, just as determined as Jack. "Mike, I think we're in trouble," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I think Jack's got more help than we initially thought." Mike's eyes locked onto mine, and I could see the concern written all over his face. "What are you talking about, Bob?" Mike asked, his voice low and urgent. "I'm talking about the people who are helping Jack," I replied. "I think they're just as bad as he is, maybe even worse." Mike's face darkened, and he nodded. "I know what you're talking about, Bob. I've been doing some digging, and I think I've found out who's behind it all." "Who?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. Mike hesitated, as if unsure of whether to reveal the information. "It's someone close to Jack," Mike said finally. "Someone who's been manipulating him from behind the scenes." I felt a surge of shock at Mike's words. "Who?" I repeated, my voice more insistent this time. Mike took a deep breath before speaking. "It's your ex-wife, Bob. She's the one who's been pulling the strings." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My ex-wife, the woman I thought I knew, was behind it all? It couldn't be. But as I thought back to our marriage, to the way she had always manipulated me, always gotten what she wanted, I realized that it made sense. She was a master manipulator, just like Jack. And together, they were unstoppable. "We need to be careful," Mike said, his voice low and urgent. "We can't let them know what we're doing. We need to keep this quiet, keep it under wraps." I nodded, my mind racing with the implications. We were in this deeper than I had ever imagined. But I was determined to see it through, to bring Jack and my ex-wife to justice. I was determined to take back control, to show them that they couldn't push me around. And as I stood there, my heart pounding in my chest, I knew that I was ready for whatever came next. I was ready to fight. But as we turned to leave, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A figure, lurking in the shadows, watching us. A figure who was definitely not Jack, but who seemed to be just as interested in what we were doing. "Mike," I whispered, my eyes locked onto the figure. "I think we're not alone." Mike's eyes followed mine, and he too saw the figure. His face darkened, and he nodded. "We need to get out of here," Mike said. "We need to get to a safe place, and fast." But as we turned to leave, I realized that it might already be too late. The figure had seen us, and it was coming for us. We were running out of time, and I knew that we had to act fast if we were going to survive. As we turned to leave, the figure emerged from the shadows, its eyes fixed intently on us. I could feel a sense of unease creeping over me, a sense of being watched and vulnerable. Mike's eyes were locked onto the figure, his face tense with concentration. "Who is that?" I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. Mike's eyes never left the figure, but he shook his head. "I don't know," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I think we're in trouble." The figure began to move towards us, its pace slow and deliberate. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my senses on high alert. Who was this person? And what did they want with us? As the figure drew closer, I could see that it was a woman. Her eyes were cold and calculating, her face set in a determined expression. She was dressed in a long, black coat, and her hair was pulled back into a tight ponytail. She looked like she meant business. "Can I help you?" Mike asked, his voice firm but polite. The woman's eyes flicked to Mike, and then back to me. "I'm looking for you," she said, her voice low and husky. "You're the one who's been asking questions, aren't you?" I felt a surge of fear at her words. How did she know what we were doing? And what did she want with us? What questions? I asked, trying to stall for time. The woman's eyes narrowed. Don't play dumb, she said. I know all about your little investigation. And I know all about your son. My heart skipped a beat at her words. How did she know about Jack? And what did she want with him? What do you want? Mike asked, his voice firm. The woman's eyes flicked to Mike, and then back to me. I want to know what you're going to do with the information you've uncovered, she said. Are you going to expose the truth, or are you going to keep it quiet? I felt a sense of confusion at her words. What truth was she talking about? And what did she mean by expose? I don't know what you're talking about, I said, trying to stall for time. The woman's eyes narrowed. Don't play dumb, she repeated. I know all about the money, and I know all about the people involved. And I know that you're not just looking for the truth, you're looking for revenge. I felt a surge of fear at her words. How did she know so much? And what did she want with us? Who are you? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The woman's eyes flicked to Mike, and then back to me. My name is Sarah, she said. And I'm the one who's been watching you. I felt a sense of unease at her words. Who was this woman, and what did she want with us? And what did she mean by watching us? As I looked into her eyes, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A glint of steel, a flash of determination. This woman was not to be underestimated. She was a force to be reckoned with. And I had a feeling that we were in grave danger. As I looked into Sarah's eyes, I saw a determination that made my blood run cold. She was a woman on a mission, and I had a feeling that we were in her way. Mike's eyes were locked onto hers, his face tense with concentration. What do you want from us? He asked, his voice firm. Sarah's eyes never left mine, but she spoke to Mike. I want to know what you're going to do with the information you've uncovered, she said. Are you going to expose the truth, or are you going to keep it quiet? I felt a sense of confusion at her words. What truth was she talking about? And what did she mean by expose? I don't know what you're talking about, I said, trying to stall for time. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Don't play dumb, she repeated. I know all about the money, and I know all about the people involved. And I know that you're not just looking for the truth, you're looking for revenge. I felt a surge of fear at her words. How did she know so much? And what did she want with us? Who are you? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Sarah's eyes flicked to Mike, and then back to me. I'm the one who's been watching you, she said. And I'm the one who's going to make sure that you don't expose the truth. I felt a sense of unease at her words. Who was this woman, and what did she want with us? And what did she mean by expose the truth? As I looked into her eyes, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A glint of steel, a flash of determination. This woman was not to be underestimated. She was a force to be reckoned with. And I had a feeling that we were in grave danger. Mike's eyes were locked onto Sarah's, his face tense with concentration. We're not going to back down, he said. We're going to keep investigating, no matter what. Sarah's eyes never left mine, but she spoke to Mike. You don't understand, she said. You don't know what you're dealing with. You're playing with fire, and you're going to get burned. I felt a surge of fear at her words. What did she mean by playing with fire? And what did she mean by getting burned? As I looked into her eyes, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A glint of steel, a flash of determination. This woman was not to be underestimated. She was a force to be reckoned with. And I had a feeling that we were in grave danger. Suddenly, Sarah's eyes flicked to the side, and she nodded. I think it's time for us to go, she said. And with that, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows. I felt a sense of relief wash over me. We had dodged a bullet. But as I turned to Mike, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A look of determination, a look of fear. "What's wrong?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Mike's eyes were locked onto mine, his face tense with concentration. "I think we're in trouble," he said. "I think we've just made a very powerful enemy." As we watched Sarah disappear into the shadows, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Who was this woman, and what did she want from us? And what did she mean by getting burned? Mike's eyes were locked onto mine, his face tense with concentration. "We need to get out of here," he said. "We need to get to a safe place, and fast." I nodded, my heart racing with fear. We didn't know what we were dealing with, but we knew it wasn't good. As we turned to leave, I saw a figure emerging from the shadows. It was Jack, my son. And he was smiling. "I see you've met Sarah," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "She's a real piece of work, isn't she?" I felt a surge of anger at his words. How could he be so calm, so collected? Didn't he know what was going on? "What's going on, Jack?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Jack's smile grew wider. "You're just starting to figure it out, aren't you?" he said. "You're just starting to realize that I'm not the only one who's been playing games." I felt a sense of confusion at his words. What was he talking about? And what did he mean by games? But before I could ask any questions, Jack's expression changed. His smile faltered, and he looked at me with a cold, hard gaze. "You should have stayed out of this, Dad," he said. "You should have left things alone." And with that, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows. I felt a sense of shock at his words. What had just happened? And what did Jack mean by games? Mike's eyes were locked onto mine, his face tense with concentration. "We need to get out of here," he said. "We need to get to a safe place, and fast." I nodded, my heart racing with fear. We didn't know what we were dealing with, but we knew it wasn't good. As we turned to leave, I saw a figure emerging from the shadows. It was Sarah, and she was smiling. "I think it's time for the truth to come out," she said. "I think it's time for Jack to face the music." And with that, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows. I felt a sense of confusion at her words. What was she talking about? And what did she mean by the truth? But before I could ask any questions, I heard a noise behind me. I turned to see Jack, my son, being led away in handcuffs. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Mike's eyes were locked onto mine, his face tense with concentration. "It's over," he said. "The truth is out, and Jack is going to face the consequences." I felt a sense of shock at his words. What had just happened? And what did Mike mean by the truth? But before I could ask any questions, I saw a figure emerging from the shadows. It was my ex-wife, and she was crying. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry for everything." I felt a sense of anger at her words. How could she be sorry? How could she have done what she did? But before I could say anything, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows. I felt a sense of relief wash over me. It was over. The truth was out, and justice had been served. As I turned to Mike, I saw a look of satisfaction on his face. "It's over," he said. "The truth is out, and Jack is going to face the consequences." I nodded, my heart filled with emotion. It was finally over. The truth was out, and justice had been served. And as I walked away from the scene, I felt a sense of closure. It was finally over. The games were finally over. And justice had been served.